What's going on, everybody? Welcome into our Halloween happy hour and happy Halloween. We are presented today by Luigi's Frozen Pizza. Make sure you're checking out Luigi's Frozen Pizza in your local grocer's freezer section. Really pumping up the pepperoni pizza this week. One of my favorites, thin, crispy crust, Wisconsin mozzarella cheese made right here in Wisconsin. You can't go wrong. Stock up on those Luigi's Victory pizzas, and hopefully, fingers crossed, if everything goes according to plan, we should get to celebrate a victory pizza Sunday and Monday this week against Carolina. We've got a lot to get into. Should be a fun one today. Before we get into all of your wonderful questions, which I have about an hour to get into here, we did get the final injury report from the Packers today. 3 players are out. Nick Niemann, which we basically knew. LVN and Dontavian Wicks, which we basically knew. 2 players are questionable. Quay Walker, which I would list as actually questionable. He was a limited participant in practice today, did not practice yesterday. So he seems to be a true question mark for this game. And then what I would consider, there's no longer a probable designation, but when you are a questionable designation and practiced in full the 2 previous days, that's usually about as probable as it gets. And that is Brandon McManus. So while he's listed as questionable, I would theoretically, put him as probable based on what we kind of know at this point. Some interesting potential transactions that could take place on Saturday. First of all, we'll see if there's any players that are called up from the practice squad, but they kind of have 2 open roster spots. I would assume that at some point, Nick Niemann is going to go on IR. It does not seem like that's going to be an injury that's going to, be back within like a month. And if that's the case, you kind of want to get him on IR sooner rather than later so that 4 weeks starts ticking. Now, if it's a season-ending injury, it doesn't matter. You can do it whenever you need the spot, right? But if you're thinking like, hey, it could be like a 5-week injury, then you want to get him on IR soon so those 4 weeks start ticking this week. So he could be placed on IR tomorrow. And then if Brandon McManus is in fact a full go and you have full confidence in him moving forward, not saying they do or should or whatever, but if that's the way they feel, you potentially have Lucas Haversick's spot as well. I expect them to hold on to Haversick, but it is a possibility. They don't really need the roster spots for anything. If anything, just call up the player from the practice squad. It's not like you're adding a player from the outside on Saturday, so you probably don't need the spots. But Niemann would potentially be the one where, again, you just want to start that clock on his IR 4 weeks so that gets going and you're not stuck later where you can't bring him back because you didn't get him on IR right away. So a couple potential transactions that could take place on Saturday. I appreciate you guys again being here. Let's get into all of your wonderful questions. We'll start right away with a couple of super chats and member updates we have. William, thank you so much for becoming a brand new member. Today is a phenomenal day to become a YouTube member. 3 additional Ross Uglum episodes out there, including one reviewing the Aaron Rodgers trade, one looking at the trade deadline, and then just some random musings that's, Ross has got going on in his mind, some observations about the Packers so far. So 3 members only videos out there that just got uploaded in the last couple hours. Plus you've got the Aaron Nagler Panthers preview out there. And then of course you get the members Q&A every single week as well. So William, thanks for signing up. And like I said, great time to sign up to become a member. Whiskey the Gathering, thank you for the super chat. I've been of the opinion that the Fire Matt LaFleur crowd has been crazy until I heard his Halloween take today. He's got to go. I respect the Halloween take of, I don't think it matters if it's Thanksgiving, Christmas, Halloween, or what holiday it is. If you're coaching a game, that's your focus, right? And there's a famous quote, I forget by who it was, but basically for an NFL coach, the only holiday that you get to celebrate is 4th of July. Everything else you're basically working for. So I totally understand Matt's idea there. It does sound like they've been having some fun with Halloween. Looks like they had some interesting images up in the locker room of players and things like that. So got to have a little fun along the way, kind of keep things, upbeat for the players. But I totally get Matt's take on it as well. William just signing up to become a brand new YouTube member. Appreciate that as well. We got double Williams coming in with memberships. It's a good name. It's my middle name, actually. Most of you probably did not know that. All right, Jordan, coming in at 12:13 p.m. with the first question today. Taking my 8-year-old to his first pro game this weekend at Lambeau. First of all, Jordan, that's awesome. That's a lifelong memory, both for the kid and for the parents. So enjoy the heck out of that. He thinks he's a Viking fan. You guys must have been listening to too much Locked On Packers. That'll convert somebody to Vikings hood right away. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Any suggestions for things to do with him to turn the tide while in Green Bay? The Titletown district is phenomenal. So everything right around there, especially for kids, they've got a full playground. You can run the 40-yard dash, a full football field that you can play football, play catch on. They've got a little, ice creams. I think it might be gelato, but gelato or ice cream stand that's underneath the building there. I don't think the ice skating or the slide, obviously the sledding hill is, and I don't think any of that stuff is set up yet, but they've usually got like bags set up and foosball and ping pong and horseshoes and bocce ball and a bunch of other stuff out there. So it's an absolute blast. That's fun. And then just bring them to the Packers Pro Shop as well. Get them stocked up on some Packers gear, get them some good food at Hinterland for lunch. And you are set. Their pizza there. Their kids pizza too is fantastic. So that's a great day right in that Titletown district, but enjoy the game. And any first experience at Lambeau Field will have somebody baptized in green and gold real fast. So hopefully that works out for you, my friend. Look at this. We've got another member coming in, Wesley, the W's, Wesley, William, and William. So thank you guys again for signing up to become YouTube members. Appreciate you a ton. And then we've got Weston saying, I don't give a bleep about Halloween. Also had a question. Is this beef with Peter with Locked On Packers real or just jokes? Genuinely curious. Guess you'll never know. No, Peter and I get along great. If you don't know, Peter's been on Pack-A-Day multiple times. I've been on Locked On multiple times. He's been, when I had the radio show, he was on the radio show probably about once a month as well. So no, it's totally just for fun. And Peter and I both have fun going back and forth, but all in good fun for sure. But it's great that you don't know, because it's fun to have what people view as like a rivalry between shows, even if it's not actually real. So I'll take it if people think that it's real. Pearl the Cat is back. We know Kraft has been insanely good as a receiving tight end, but how is he as blocking overall? It's never really talked about. Well, you didn't listen today or to this week's grading episode then, Pearl. But no, I did talk about it this week. I thought this is one of his best games as a blocker. I would put him above serviceable in that average to good category. Probably closer to average than good. But here's the thing with Kraft. If you're that dangerous of a receiving weapon, hold your own /average/good as a blocker is by far, in a way, good enough. Like, as long as you've got those receiving chops, that's going to be the way that you do your major damage. And what I'm basically saying is he's not like Mercedes Lewis. He's not one of the best blocking tight ends in the league, but you don't go out and watch him play on Sundays, Mondays, Thursdays, whatever, and say, oh my God, why is he out there as a blocking tight end, or like he can't hang? That's not the case at all. I would put him above, like Jared Cook as a blocking tight end. I would certainly put him well above where Jimmy Graham was at. So if you're a good receiving tight end and you're even average as a blocking tight end, you're in a great space. So if you're talking like prime George Kittle, I think Kittle is a much better, like probably a good step or two above what Kraft is as a blocker, but you're getting some of that sweet George Kittle, Rob Gronkowski type run after the catch ability with Kraft. So you're getting the high end receiving and you're still getting a solid blocking tight end. So he's just really good overall, which you love to see. No way. Not okay. Sorry. There's another, it just came up again for some reason, but Weston, I'll thank you again. No, we do have a William, a Wesley, and a Weston becoming members. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. Getting lost with my W's here. All right, Andy, and looking at remaining games, do you think there's a chance the Packers won't have to play a wild card game? Sure, absolutely. It just depends on how this team obviously plays the rest of the season. I guess that kind of goes without saying. But if you look at this schedule, I think you feel pretty good about it. It's not going to be easy. Don't get me wrong. This, I think, along with the Vikings games and maybe Chicago at home, are probably, even Chicago at home is going to be a little bit tough. But I think this and the Vikings game are going to be the easiest games remaining. Philly will be tough. We know that. I think New York is going to be tougher than you would expect. I think that's one of those like Packers win by a field goal and it's annoying kind of games. Giants have been scrappy and tenacious and feisty, and those are always tough games to play on a road. So we'll see what that brings. I would love if Green Bay just was able to whoop up on them, but we'll kind of have to keep an eye on that one. Green Bay struggled with the Giants as of late too in the Matt LaFleur era, which is a weird thing to say, but it's also been true. Even Tommy DeVito got him. So just be careful with the Giants. Again, I think the Minnesota games are going to be relatively easy. I think Minnesota's going to really struggle the rest of the year. Detroit's going to be really tough. Denver is going to be tough. Baltimore at home is going to be tough. We already talked about Philly. And then, it wouldn't stun me if Chicago pulled off some sort of split against Green Bay, right, in their two games. So if you're kind of thinking of it that way, hopefully Green Bay can get both, but it wouldn't stun me. Just Chicago's a little bit of a pain to play as well. I know they haven't been as well, at least against Baltimore, they weren't as good. We'll have to kind of see how they do the rest of the year, but I do think they'll kind of get better in that Ben Johnson offense as the year goes along as well. So not either of those games scare me, but having two of them kind of makes me a little bit nervous for one of those games. But yeah, I think you can probably get through this remainder of the schedule with maybe 3 more losses. And if that's the case, you're sitting at 12-4-1. And if you're at 12-4-1, then you're looking at, a team, like let's say, I guess any of these teams could only lose 2 more games, but even Philly, Detroit, Tampa, Seattle, LA, I think them only winning or only losing 2 games the rest of the year is going to be pretty tough for any of those teams. So we'll see. I would hope that they don't have to, only lose 2 games the rest of the year on their end to potentially get that number 1 seed. But even that is within the realm of possibility. Like if you told me that they, simply just lost maybe, I don't know, I could see at Denver and like at Detroit where they're 2 losses and they won every other game, including all their home games. I could easily see that being the case as well. So it's definitely within the realm of possibility, baby QB. Andy, I've noticed that while we are getting good pressure on the quarterback, we are not blitzing as much as last year. Do you think blitzing less is causing the absence of turnovers compared to last year? It shouldn't be that way because they're getting good pressure on their non-blitzing plays. So now you just have more players in coverage, which should theoretically lead to, again, good pressure plus more players in coverage would theoretically lead to more interceptions. I think they're blitzing in a way has been in a bit of a no man's land sort of category. A couple of times it's worked really well, but think of the game this past week. If you blitz, you're inherently leaving somebody on an island, right? You can't blitz and, cover everyone, especially double cover everyone. So you're going to leave something open. Think of this past week against Pittsburgh where Edgerrin Cooper got to Aaron Rodgers in literally a second. Like he's literally, nobody blocks him. He's one of the fastest players on the field. He goes right through the A gap and right at Aaron. And Aaron just takes a step back and hurls one up one-on-one to the receiver. And Keyshawn is blind to the play. And it's one of those kind of BS receiver just jumps up. And of course, what's the corner going to do other than play the receiver? He's not turned around. So it's going to be a pass interference penalty. But then you get in some of those no man's land situations. So I think until the corners start playing better and you start having a little bit more confidence with some of the coverage and those intermediate and short passes, you're almost not wanting to blitz as much, especially with the pressure that they're able to get with their front 4. The cheat code on defense in the league is get pressure with 4, cover with 7, and you're usually pretty good in that situation. Right now, they just need to do a better job of covering with that 7. Or if you are going to bring that extra player or 2, then you really got to step up on those outside cornerback positions and just in coverage in general, or you're going to continue to give up those plays. Jamar Chase's touchdown at the end of the game in Cincinnati, another great example of that. That play, Flacco had, a second to throw the ball. And, he basically, again, throws one up deep. Or was it? Yeah, it was Flacco. Throws it deep and Jamar Chase comes up with an amazing play. Sorry, Siri just heard me for some reason. Came up with an amazing play in that situation. So you're just more on an island with those defensive backs. And I'm not sure that that's necessarily where you want to be with Green Bay right now. I do think they have to find a way to generate more turnovers, but I think the pressure with their front 4 is good. And I think in general, covering with 6-7 players is probably where you want this team to be. But they have to tighten things up just a little bit in their secondary. I think that goes without saying. All right. Does Wilson get invited to go out for the toss? Or since it's not actually in Carolina, does that not matter? Asking for a friend on the corner. Does Wilson get invited to go out for the toss? All right, what am I missing here? Emmanuel Wilson? Are we talking Emmanuel Wilson getting to go out for the toss? All right, they're playing Carolina. It's at home. Why? I'm not sure why Emmanuel Wilson would get to go out for the toss. I'm confused, Ben. Help me out. I feel like there's something obvious here that I'm missing, and I don't know what it is that I'm missing. So help me out on this one. Oh, there's a joke here. Does Wilson get invited to go out for the toss? Or since it's actually not Carolina, does that not matter? Asking for a friend on the corner. Is this a Jair joke from when he went out on the coin toss on his own? I don't know. You lost me, Ben. Sorry. Andy, which of the 5 guys Dusty says the Packers should target do you like best and or is the most likely? I'll be transparent, baby QB. I have not had the opportunity to listen to Dusty's full episode yet. So I can't speak exactly on which of the 5 guys that Dusty pinpointed. I'll just say that I don't think you want to probably spend too much time in this game kind of just attacking JC Horn. That would be the one that I would say, hey, you probably want to be a little bit careful on. Everything else in this game, I feel like is fair game, and you can attack. And again, I'm not afraid of JC Horn. It's just that's probably the one I don't want to spend the entire day attacking. Everything else, I feel like you can go after pretty aggressively in this game and not be super concerned about. Happy Halloween, Andy. What is your assessment of Luke Butkus, given how the season has gone so far? Thanks, and hope you have sweet treats tonight. Max, thank you so much for that, and happy Halloween to you as well. I talk about this quite a bit, so sorry if I'm repeating myself for some of you. I think it's an impossibility to make any commentary on assistant coaches. Even if I was attending practice every day, the portion that's open to the media, you get out there for 10 minutes at most. It's usually like 8 minutes of the individual periods. You can kind of see a little bit of the individual stuff that they might be looking at, but it doesn't give you any real indicator of what they're actually focusing on or working on a day-to-day basis with their players. We don't get to see any of the team meetings. There's no all 22 of the assistant coaches. We don't get to see their TPS reports. You get my point, right? So the only thing we can kind of go off of for assistant coaches is how many players are playing above expectations, at expectations, or below expectations. I would say in general, I think basically pound for pound, everyone on this offensive line has been below my expectations so far. So that's not a great sign. Does that have anything to do with Luke Butkus? Maybe, probably, but maybe not. And it's just a really difficult thing to say. Maybe Luke Butkus has this group of offensive linemen playing better than any other offensive line coach in the league would have them playing at. Maybe he's the worst and they would be playing literally better with any other offensive line coach. It's just really difficult to say. Even defensive line coach, right? DeMarcus Covington seems to be doing an incredible job with guys like Colby Wooden, Devontae Wyatt, LVN, Rashawn Gary, Micah Parsons, etc. Guess what? I bet Jason Rebrovich would have loved to have had Micah Parsons on that line to open up some one-on-ones for other players. That probably made his life a whole lot simpler. Do I think Covington's doing a much better job than Rebrovich? I do. Do I know that for a fact? I don't. So it's just really difficult to glean exactly what the assistant coaches are doing on a day-to-day basis, whether that's helping or hurting. But I will say the offensive line in general is coming up below my expectations, which probably reflects poorly on Luke Butkus to some extent, but it's just really tough to say 100% for sure. Happy Friday, Andy. What are you going to be for Halloween? John, no costume for me this year. I have no party tonight or tomorrow. I was supposed to go to a Halloween party tomorrow night, which would have, had a costume, but, instead I am actually home hosting for my kids a Halloween party at our house. And so I've got like sixth graders and like 3 second graders that are going to be at the house tomorrow. And I'm just going to make sure that the house doesn't burn down. So volunteer firefighter dressed in regular clothing is probably what I'm going to be going as tomorrow. So yeah, just hoping that everything isn't too chaotic, but it should be a ton of fun for the kids tomorrow. I'm looking forward to that, but no costume for me this year. How is it already November basically? And who do you think covers the large spread, Pack or the Rams against the Saints? Maybe the Saints get a little bit of a spark from Tyler Shuck, but I don't think so. I don't think he's very good, to be honest. So I'll say the Packers. I think they're due to just beat down a team. And like I talked about this week, I'm not going to be on here Sunday night or Monday morning if the Packers win by 4 points and being like, oh, this team, I can't believe they couldn't win. Now, if you could guarantee me right now the Packers win by 4 points, I'll sign the contract. It maybe won't be the sexiest thing in the world, but a win's a win. And I would gladly take that over any sort of unknown that we have right now. Even if they're expected to win by 13.5, I'll sign the contract for a 4-point win. That being said, I'm ready for this team to start bearing some opponents that they're just better than. And maybe it's that they were up by 21 and Carolina gets some garbage time points at the end and it looks closer than what it was and they don't cover. That's fine. I don't care about that. But at some point in time, the best of the best during the course of the year, they hammer some teams. They show exactly who they are against, some of those weaker opponents. If they win by 20 this week, does it mean that they're going to be Super Bowl bound? No. If they win by 1 or lose by 7, does that mean that their season's over and that they're not going to have a chance at the end of this thing? No, it doesn't. But at some point in time, I'd like to see this team inflict their will on the opposing, team. And I think this is a great week to do that and hopefully come up with a big win this week. Do you think the Badgers will avoid relegation? I'll say this, John. Where are we at? How many Big Ten teams do we have now? Is it 16 or is it more now? I don't even know what it's at. It's 18. Okay. I will be. I'm actually. I never thought of this before, John. I know your comment is obviously in jest, but get to 20 teams in the Big Ten, and don't make it an East and a West thing. Make it the top teams that finished in the top 10 get to go on the top side of things, and the bottom 10 and the bottom 10, and separate it. And then like each year, for the next year, and then the next year, the bottom 3 in the top and the top 3 in the bottom get promoted and relegated. I'd be all for that. I'd absolutely be all for that. So yeah, sign me up. And then, you can make it so that you do a Big Ten tournament at the end with 4 teams that are only in the top bracket. You could do a couple different things. They never go for it because the bottom teams are always going to feel like they've got to fight to get their way up. But I'll be honest, I wouldn't hate it. I also think that as time goes on, we won't even need to get into that. But I think there's some ways, if you're going to build the Big Ten as big as it is, just almost make it an island of itself and have something like that. I'd be totally for it. Quite frankly, I think it would make the conference a whole heck of a lot more fun, rather than having these 20 teams that are just, there's 2 or 3 teams that are fighting for the top spot, and that's kind of it. Not sure that that's ultimately what you want it to be. So a little bit more stakes to it. I honestly wouldn't hate it whatsoever. How did you grade CV on the end touchdown at the end of the game? I'd have to look at the exact, but it was definitely a negative. I appreciated the fact that he was there, that he made a play on the ball, but still a play where he was in coverage and gave up a touchdown on the play. So it wasn't like this massive negative or anything like that, but still a touchdown play, still a scoring play, still a negative play on the ledger for him. Still ended up in the positive for the day overall. Thought he had a nice day, and to me was clearly the best corner on the day for Green Bay. Whiskey, we did that one. I don't mean to offend anybody, but I couldn't care less about Halloween. No offense taken there, Ben. And that's for everyone. I certainly have holidays that I like more and less. Halloween's probably not one of my favorites, but I enjoy it. I think it's fun and don't have anything against it either. Except that it makes it fun because it marks when football season gets real. That's a very fair point. Noon game, been a while. Has it been a while? When was the last noon game for Green Bay? Oh, I don't get to see. I don't know. But it wasn't Detroit, wasn't Washington. Cleveland was a noon game, right? I think it was Cleveland would probably have been the last one. Maybe it was a 3, but I can't remember. Weston, I totally get it. 14 out of the 30 sacks you predicted. Chicken, you might be on your way. Do you think the Green Bay Packers will make 2 blockbuster trades before the deadline? No, I do not. If I were betting on if there's one trade or not, I would say that there is not a trade. If it is, I think it'll be something pretty minor, but I don't want to spoil anything. I am going to do a full trade breakdown for tomorrow. Players the Packers could target, should target, shouldn't target, and what they should be potentially looking for. So I'll get you that full trade deadline primer for tomorrow's show on Pack-A-Day. Have it up for you at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning. And for members, you'll have it later today. Your head coach, what is the one change right now? I would definitely be fighting for another corner at the deadline. I just want an upgrade there. So I would be fighting for that. And then we're spending a ton of time on offensive line technique work. Like we are dedicating a crap ton of time to getting our run blocking better up front. To me, these are 2 potentially catastrophic issues for this team as they try to make a run towards the Super Bowl. Got to have the run blocking better, got to cover better in the secondary, specifically with the corners. And if those 2 things don't happen, you can win a playoff game. You might win 2. You might make it to the Super Bowl, but trying to get through multiple playoff games plus a Super Bowl and win 3 or 4 games, whatever it takes against some of the best of the best, I just don't see it happening. So to me, I'm calling about a corner, or trying to urge Goody to see if we can add one more piece in that cornerback room. And we are spending a crap ton of time on the offensive line and technical work. Those would be my 2 big things. Glad to see the Packers special teams playing better. That's another one we probably need to work on quite a bit. I'm all in on this unit prediction. They finished this year as a top 31 unit. I'm not holding my breath, John. I'll just put it that way. I think if you gave me odds of finishing top 31 or 32, I'll take top 31, but I don't know that I would feel great about the bet. I think the person who used to do the special teams rankings no longer does it. So I don't even know that there's a viable special teams ranking. Trying to think if here we go. The Packers are currently ranked 26th by PFF in their special teams grades. Lowest is the Rams, followed by the Chargers, Dolphins, Patriots, Raiders, Falcons, and then the Packers at number 26. They play the Panthers at number 25, so maybe an equal special teams matchup this week. But yeah, I guess I'll take top 31, John. Thoughts on CV and his performance on Sunday? Benching your corner sucks, but necessary. Yeah, a couple things. I liked how Jeff Hafley handled it this week. It was a benching for that week, but I have a feeling this is still going to be a competitive thing. And I still think there's going to be some obvious passing situations like there were last week with Nate Hobbs, where he gets on the field more. I know there was only like 3 or 4 snaps this past week, but in a game where hopefully Green Bay's up a lot this week and the Carolina Panthers are forced to pass a bunch, it wouldn't surprise me if Nate Hobbs gets in that nickel position a little bit more in some of those obvious passing downs. So I still think Nate Hobbs is going to have a role. I still think he's going to play quite a bit. Maybe quite a bit is aggressive, but I think he's going to be in that conversation. And don't discount the fact either that Matt LaFleur said that Keyshawn Nixon is a part of that conversation as well. Obviously, Keyshawn coming off a really rough week. And the other thing I'll add is Hobbs only played those 3 or 4 snaps this past week. He had 2 plays in coverage, and he had really good coverage on those 2 plays in particular. So hopefully a harbinger of things to come for Nate Hobbs. I still think he's going to play a role on the season. How significant that is remains to be seen. On your former question, I thought CV played well this week, had a positive grade on him, was my highest graded corner, and hopefully, again, a sign of things to come for him as well. I think this defense has been better when Valentine's been on the field and a little bit worse when Hobbs has been at that outside corner position. Seriously, I think if they pick the right kicker, I think they can finish middle 10 on teams. If I'm Goot, I'm keeping both until McManus is 100% and kicking well, or Haversick clearly wins. I don't disagree with anything you said there, John, except probably being top 10 with the right kicker, middle 10. Yeah, I don't know if I get there, but I do think that they probably hold on to Haversick until they have a final decision one way or the other, and just get a little bit better of an indicator maybe from McManus, at least this week. Let him kick again this week and see how he's doing. Andy, I need to know, where does this attitude towards kickers come from with Matt LaFleur? Who hurt him? How far back does it go? Need to know. I think he was kind of saying it in jest. I don't know for sure. I do know he's kind of joked about this in the past of like not talking to kickers or holding his breath with kickers. This is not totally abnormal for coaches who don't really. Coaches want control. Okay. They want X's and O's. They want to put the right player in the right spot at the right time. They want to be able to practice certain things so that they know that it's going to go right on game day. And with a kicker, they have no control. Matt LaFleur there's nothing that Matt's going to go tell Brandon McManus to help him kick better this week. There's nothing he can do to improve the odds that Brandon McManus is going to kick. But now maybe he can emphasize the blocking up front a little bit more and things like that. But assuming everything with the operation is good, Brandon McManus is either going to make it or he's going to miss it. And it's just sort of in the hands of the football gods and Brandon McManus himself. So because of that, you're not spending a ton of time with that player. You know, you could give him words of encouragement and it could go the wrong way. You could say something jokingly and it could go the wrong way. It's almost like a pitcher, on game day where you're just like, I'm staying away from that guy. I'm just letting him stay in his routine and keep going. As I'm sure he's very amicable with Brandon McManus and passing and things like that. But coaches are controlling what they can control, and the things they don't have control over, they kind of just want to push to the side. And with kicking, specifically the kicker, there's just not much control there. And you're just hoping and praying that when you put the kicker out on the field for a makeable field goal, he's going to go out there and execute, because a coach sometimes can get ruined or have a bad decision because a kicker misses a field goal, right? So I think there's sometimes a separation of church and state there where you're just like, I don't even want to think about this guy. My career could be in this guy's hands. The season could be in this guy's hands. And there's nothing that I can do about controlling it better one way or the other. I just hope he makes his freaking kicks. And I think sometimes that's maybe why there's a little bit more of a hands-off approach there. But I think for the most part, Matt was kind of at least saying that in jest. Go Sports. Jake, all for it. Go Sports indeed. Kicker's no good, says Matt LaFleur. Happy Halloween to you as well, Pokey. Andy, is it true that the Packers called Miami about A-Chain's price? Any thoughts, Jacobs and A-Chain combo? I'm sure Easton is probably correct on his reporting there. I don't question that. What Easton will be the first to point out is that these phone calls happen all the time. You're calling on the price of players if they're even interested in trading a player. It's also possible that the Packers hear from another team or another GM of like, hey, did you hear A-Chain? That the Dolphins are interested in trading A-Chain. So as a GM, then your due diligence is to call up Miami and say, hey, heard some whispers that, A-Chain's on the block. What are you kind of looking for? Because the last thing you want as a GM is, you really like a player, and then all of a sudden you get the tweet from Schefter of like, so-and-so got traded for a 7th round pick. And then you're like, shit, I would have traded a 4th round pick for that guy. Like, I love that guy. I can't believe we didn't even know that he was available. And I could have had him for a pick that I would have been willing to give up. And I didn't even know he was available. So you want to do your due diligence on that stuff. Do I think the Packers are going to trade for A-Chain? No, not at all. I'd be pretty stunned, in fact, if that ended up being the case, especially with the way that Emmanuel Wilson is practicing lately. I don't think it's a position of need. I don't think it's anything that you want to use your resources on right now. I would be pretty surprised by it. Would he make a good fit with Josh Jacobs as a little bit more of a thunder and lightning, kind of what you were probably hoping that Marshawn Lloyd was going to get you? Sure, absolutely. I think he would be a fun piece in this offense, and I'm sure Matt LaFleur would be all for that as well. For whatever pick it would take to get him, I would be pretty stunned if that happens. And you also have to remember, teams are also doing their diligence ahead of the trade deadline in case crap happens. If all of a sudden Josh Jacobs were to go down with a significant injury this week, not speaking it into existence, of course, but you have to know what running backs are out there and available that I can call on that we could potentially trade for, right? So I would count it more as due diligence and doing your homework more than anything else. I don't have any additional information, no sources or anything like that, but wouldn't surprise me if it was something that a phone call was made on. Don't expect anything to happen out of it. Do you watch all the Packers press conferences? The coach ones for sure, the coordinator ones for sure. The assistant coaches ones aren't up there, but yes, the coaching coordinator ones, and then like the Jordan Love one after the game and things like that. Those ones I absolutely do. Yes. What have you heard about Jaden Reed's health and how close is he to return? Mike, nothing that I've heard on it other than he was with the rehab group this week, which is a good sign, but it doesn't mean much in the scheme of things of him actually returning to football form and things like that. Just going on the initial diagnoses and injuries that he had at the beginning of the year. I'm still of that like early to mid-December timeline. If he's ahead of that, great. Hopefully he's not behind that, but as long as he's back end of the year and he's good to go for the playoffs, that to me is the biggest thing. But I'm kind of keeping my fingers crossed and hoping for a early to mid-December return for Jaden Reed at the latest. I've heard Mike Wall talk about O-line technique not being good enough. I also remember him talking about times when coaches ask players to do too much. Is it bad technique or asking the offensive line to do too much? Kevin, I would say this one is bad technique. There's nothing that the offensive line is doing right now that's like out of the ordinary. They're not trying to run some new complex system that nobody else is running. These are pretty common plays that are throughout the course of the NFL and even college football right now that you see on a game-to-game basis. So there's a couple things here and there that they might ask an offensive lineman to do that's a little bit aggressive, but for the most part, this to me is more technique than what they're being asked to do. 2024 redraft, what order are the 6 QBs and does Rattler sneak in? Rattler's bench now, which I still think is a bad mistake for New Orleans. I talked about it to a couple of people this week. If I'm Minnesota, I might make that phone call. I might say, what do you want for Rattler? I think he's better than McCarthy, and I think they need some sort of solution. If I'm Pittsburgh, I'm also calling about Rattler. Get him in and see if you can have him learn behind Aaron this year, and then see if he can be a successor to Aaron next year. There's a couple teams that I actually think that makes sense for. 2024 draft. Let's see here. So we've got Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Michael Penix, JJ McCarthy, Bo Nix, Spencer Rattler. The only other noteworthy one is sort of Joe Milton. So wouldn't Penix was the 6th. So wait. Williams is 1, Daniels is 2, May is 3rd, Penix is the 4th, McCarthy is the 5th, Nix is the 6th. And then Rattler was the 7th quarterback taken. I bet Rattler is still the 7th quarterback taken in that group. I think the other ones still have higher upside, so I think they all still get taken ahead of him, but I think he goes much earlier than the 5th round. Maybe it's not by much. Maybe it's like the 4th round or something like that, but I think he definitely gets taken before that, probably even a little bit sooner than that. I do think Drake May gets taken first if you're redrafting today, although there's a fun conversation with May and Jaden Daniels, but I think May goes first. Jaden Daniels goes second still. And then it gets a lot more interesting from there on out. And McCarthy probably goes a lot later than what he did right now. All right. Do you think Hopper will get more snaps? I think he's a real deal. Go Pack, go. Well, he certainly could this week if Quay Walker is out this week. We're gonna have to wait and see if Walker plays. If Walker doesn't, McDuffie will take the Mike snaps and take the green dot would be my assumption. And then and McDuffie's had a really nice season, by the way. This last week was his worst game, but outside of that, he's played really good football. And then obviously, Cooper's primarily going to play your kind of weak side will linebacker. And then I think Hopper would take McDuffie's place in your 4-3 defense, which we could see quite a bit of if Carolina wants to run the football as much as I think they're going to want to run it this week. So if Quay's out, yes. If he's not, then I think we're still going to see primarily Quay, McDuffie, and Cooper be your primary three this week. Let's see. Andy, I absolutely like the 1923 uniforms, but a lot of NFL fans think they're ugly. How do you see it? I beyond love them. I could go without the fake leather helmet. I'm not a huge fan of the helmet. I think it's their coolest throwback alternative jersey by far, and I don't even think it's close. So yeah, I absolutely love it. Not a huge fan of the helmet, but everything else is absolutely chef kiss perfect. And if I were to, I'm not a jersey guy, but if I were to buy a jersey, it would 1,000,000% be a jersey of these jerseys that they're wearing this weekend. Yeah, we talked about Reed. Again, probably early to mid-December is my hope. Let's see. A couple of times Kraft annoyed TJ, got to come for something. Absolutely. I thought this was one of his best weeks as a blocker this week for sure. I thought he was really good in all phases, which is why he was graded so high by both myself and PFF. He was phenomenal this week. Never take a Packers wide receiver for fantasy. Not right now, not in this era. That's for sure. When Devontae was here, you certainly could have, and others in the past, but no, this group of receivers, yes, just stay away. Although that is probably a perfect time to transition really quick here to our sleeper picks for this week, in which case I am going with Matthew Golden this week. Matthew Golden, more than 35.5 receiving yards. Teteroa McMillan, more than 51.5 receiving yards. I think they're going to have to throw to get back in this game at some point. And Teteroa is by far and away their best receiver. And Green Bay's kind of struggled with those type of receivers so far. And then Ryan Fitzgerald, 2 field goals made. I do think that he ends up with more than 1.5. I think the Carolina Panthers are going to have to settle for some field goals in this one, which is why Green Bay gets the big win. But Matthew Golden, more than 35.5. Teteroa McMillan, more than 51.5. And Ryan Fitzgerald, more than 1.5 field goals made. Best part, you can get a 100% match up to $100 by utilizing code PACKADAY. Again, 100% match up to $100 by utilizing code PACKADAY. Terms and conditions apply. You can find those terms over on Sleeper. Make sure you're checking it out. Cannot recommend it enough and cannot thank them enough for presenting today's show. They're awesome to work with, and make sure that you are utilizing Sleeper when you have a chance. Great for fantasy leagues as well. Cannot recommend that enough. It's where we have our fantasy league with Perry Goldstein, Dusty Evely, Tom Grassi, myself, etc. Currently, by the way, I'm in it. I've been some bad luck, friends, some bad luck so far, but we've done 2 seasons of it. I won the championship the first year, lost in the playoffs last year. So far, I am in 4th place, but have the second most points behind only Aaron Ellis, who has a total of 0.4 more points than me. 0.4. She's in first. I'm in second in overall points, and I'm in 4th place because of it, but only 1 game back. So that league is Aaron Ellis, Dusty Evely, Sanjay, myself, Andrew Murtag, Kyle Fellows, Maggie Loney, Perry Goldstein, Matub, Maggie Loney's husband, Tom Grassi, and Dan Kotnick. So it's a fun league. Need to take home that championship this year. Stacked team, by the way. Stacked team. I won't read it to you, but it's a stacked team. We're going to win a championship again. 2 in 3 years. We're going for a dynasty here. I appreciate Sleeper. Make sure to check it out when you got the chance. Let's get back here to our regularly scheduled program. All right, back to our comments. Where did we leave off here? All right. Do you see us keeping with rotating Sean Ryan as the offensive lineman? I think this is very much going to be a week-to-week thing. I think Ryan and Morgan are fully in a competition. I thought Morgan was better this past week, so we could see more Jordan Morgan this week. It's funny because 2 weeks ago, I thought Morgan was really bad and Ryan probably should have played in that game and Morgan played the entire game. And then this past week, Ryan played more, but I thought Morgan was better in the game. So hopefully they can just kind of figure that out. But I think it's going to continue to be a competition week to week, and matchups could have something to do with that as well. When Matt LaFleur calls runs on 2nd and 10, is it the case that it's usually against too high? If so, our defense is rotating down into less advantageous run looks. They are giving Green Bay a lot of advantageous run looks in those situations. And no, I mean, at some point, yes, like you'll see a couple things here and there, but for the most part, the issue again is not necessarily with the play call. Matt needs to be a little less predictable with it. And just need to call it a little bit less. But the issue is that they're just not having success against some very advantageous run looks up front. You've got to be able to run against those looks. You've got to be able to pick up 5-6 yards so you can get into those 3rd and 4 situations. But at the same time, if you're not able to run in those situations, then you've got to adjust your offense and call fewer of those plays. But for the most part, it's been poor run blocking, and that's what needs to improve mostly up front. What would voters need to see from Love and the Packers the rest of the season for him to at least finish top of the MVP voting or win it? He's been a top 5 guy in my opinion this year. Go Pack Go. You're awesome, by the way, Andy. Thank you for that, William. I do think there's a really good chance. I think I predicted earlier this year that I'll finish in the top 7. I think top 5 or top 7 for Jordan is very much in play. I think if he has a second half of the season like he did in 2023 and maybe this last game, interestingly enough against Pittsburgh, which is when he started that run in 2023 as well. If that's the case and he plays like that the rest of the year, I think he'll very much finish maybe even top 3. And depending on how Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jonathan Taylor, Drake May, maybe Baker Mayfield play the rest of the year, I think he can very much be in that conversation. But for the first thing, Jordan's going to have to play really, really well. But he's played great so far, and he's put himself in that position this far through the season to be in that top 3, top 5 of MVP voting if he has a really good rest of the season. David, do you think we should trade for Rasul Douglas? Never want to punt on a super chat question, so I'll try my best here. But my answer to this is that I plan on watching him later today for tomorrow's video to get a better feel for exactly how he's playing. So I want to take a little bit better look at the tape before I say so. His 2024 tape was really, really bad. Per PFF, he's had a really good season. I don't know how he graded out last night. And again, not that that's the be all end all by any stretch of the imagination, but I want to go look at the tape. He had a really good grade last night, 70.2. So he's got a 75.2 grade on the season, which would have been his second best grade of his career so far. So by all accounts, at least by PFF's account, he's playing really good football. If that's the case, I would certainly be for it, but I want to go and watch it a little bit closer. And then of course, depends on what Miami would be asking for in exchange as well. Happy Halloween, Andy. Happy Halloween to you as well, Jonathan. Spotrack says the potential out for Nate Hobbs is this offseason. I know it's early, but if he continues to struggle, do you think they'd move on this early? My guess is for Banks and Hobbs, they'll at least see one more year. Yes, there's a potential out, but it probably makes a little bit more sense after year 2. My hope is that both of those players just start playing a lot better. And Banks has been better as of late. I think Banks will certainly get one more year, but I would say as of right now, both of those players are probably trending on being released after their second season, unless they both start playing better. I don't think either of them are egregious enough to get cut after this year. But if either of them are really bad the rest of the year, then that absolutely becomes a talking point and a conversation point. But it would suck if you had to do that, because you're basically giving them both massive contracts this year for 1 year of football and taking on huge dead cap hits this next year. You don't want that to be the case, but you have to make the smart choice as well. And if they're both not playing well, then you bite the bullet and you make the move. But I would expect both to be on the roster next year. Andy, any reason that Sean Ryan was doing the victory formation snaps with Love under center last week? I want to ask Matt about this at some point. It's a really, I'm not saying your question is dumb, Jesse, but it's like a inconsequential question to ask in a press conference. They line up all over the place. So everyone was out of position on that snap. So they do that in victory formation. I don't know why. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know if it's just like a fun tradition or something, but I would like to ask that at some point. But they've been doing this for a very long time, where the offensive line is always very jumbled on the final snap of the game. I will say this. I'm totally cool with doing that. The one position I wouldn't do it with is center. Listen, I get an exchange is probably pretty simple at that point in the game. If I'm up by like one score and I need to, like, we're into kneel down situations and we get to, kneel out the clock, My starting center is going to be with my starting quarterback. That's the one thing we can't have. Now, last week they're up double-digit scores or whatever, so it's probably not a big deal. But that's probably the one I'm not going to mess with. But yeah, I don't know why they do it that way. It seems just like kind of like a fun tradition, if nothing else. Dennis, I kind of don't want them to win the remainder of their games. I don't think that this team is going to go on what would amount to a. Let's see, what are they at? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 6. I don't think they're going to go on a 16-game win streak, which is what it would take to win out the rest of their regular season games, then win their 2 playoff games, and then win in the Super Bowl. Actually, what, 3 playoff games? Wait, division conference. Yeah. So 2 playoff games in the Super Bowl. So yeah, they'd have to go on a 16-game win streak to go undefeated the rest of the year. I don't see that happening. So I would kind of rather they get that loss or 2 out of their system. I also think there's some important things that you can kind of learn in those losses as well. So they'll have a loss or 2, probably maybe even more than that through the remainder of this regular season. That's not the end of the world. All I care about is that once the playoffs start, they go undefeated for the remainder of their games, whether it's 3 or 4 games that they need to win from there on out. Would you rather split with both the Vikings and Bears, but sweep the Lions, or lose to Detroit and sweep the Vikings and Bears? I'll lose to Detroit and sweep the Vikings and Bears, because I only have 1 game left with Detroit. Obviously, in that situation, I get 2 losses with Minnesota and Chicago. So I guess it's sort of close, because you would then for sure have, but you're not going to end up in a tiebreaker scenario anyway, because you have the tie. You get a win and Detroit gets a loss, but then you get 2 losses on top of it. I don't know. I'll still take more wins, and I'll just take the loss to Detroit, and I'll take the 4 wins remaining against Minnesota and Chicago in that scenario. Am I the only one who's fine with Golden's usage? I like him a lot, but if all he does his rookie year is make clutch 3rd and 4th down plays and deep balls, I'm stoked. Like the Cobb comparison a lot. Yeah, I don't hate it. He's been used a lot. So I think that's the first thing we need to kind of recognize is he's been used quite a bit. So that should be noted. And to me, I think Jordan can look his way a few more times, but for the most part, I don't have an issue with the way that he's being used at all. I do want to get to some of these super chats, because I think we've got a lot more questions in chat than I was maybe expecting or saw. Dressing up as Ryan Rollins. So you're dressed as a goat, Aiden Yang. He was unbelievable last night. He's been unbelievable this season so far. I mean, talk about potentially, I know it's early on and you got to do this for a while, and we've seen players play well and then flake out or whatever. But if this is the real Ryan Rollins that you're getting, what a freaking game changer that is. That's a legit big time player that you have at point guard that came out of nowhere. The Bucks could really use that. And then to me, if Rollins can be that dude at point guard, AJ Green is like that, then that's a starter, like on a championship team. Miles Turner, we know, can be. He was in there a year ago. Giannis is, and AJ Green, you need that drop dead shooter as well, right? So to me, now you're like a player away from, not, I know that this isn't Bucks Today podcast, but you're like one player away. And obviously Gary Trent and some of those guys have been playing well also, but you're like one big time player away. And don't sleep on the fact that next year you're going to have Kuzma on an expiring deal, and you still have Bobby Portis with a big cap number as well. You combine those, you'll have your draft pick next year. That it's not going to be great if they play well this year, but you have a draft pick next year. And then they'll have 2 unprotected first-round picks that they can trade. So you'll have 3 first-round picks, including 2 unprotecteds, with 2 big contracts that you can parlay into 1 more big-time player. Like that's a significant player that you can get for that type of trade capital. So, if all of a sudden it's Rollins, AJ Green, then a big-time player next year, Giannis and Turner, that in 2026 as well could be really fun to look at. So just this team's playing awesome. I love the way that they're playing. Sorry to go on a tirade, but I'm a little bit geeked out about the Bucks at the moment. So yeah, thanks for the question, Aiden. Or at least the comments about Ryan Rollins. Michael, thank you for becoming a brand new member. Appreciate that. What do you think of making a play for Shelby Harris to bolster our D-line roster? Again, I'll have to kind of look at, what he's making and how he's playing so far this year. We'll have to look at a little bit of his tape. That type of player, though, is exactly the type of like 5th defensive lineman that I'm looking for. Just an upgrade over Nazir Stackhouse. You can probably even keep Stackhouse on the roster if you want for the moment. I don't think he would get claimed. I think you could get him back on the practice squad, but just an upgrade there, a veteran, a 5th defensive lineman, I think makes a lot of sense. And somebody like that, I know Calais Campbell said he's not going anywhere. So that one's probably out the window. But somebody like a Shelby Harris, Calais Campbell, I think makes a lot of sense for this defense. Andy, I love the content. Appreciate you, William. What would voters need to see from Love and the Packers? Oh, we talked about that one, but thank you for the super chat. Golden is upset about his usage. Join the club. Yeah, I think part of that's just maturing in the NFL too, and especially as a rookie, first-round pick coming in with high expectations. I think they'll be able to calm that down and coach that out of him a little bit. They've got, some veterans in that room that have gone through that. Romeo Dobbs is a great person to talk to. He's been through that. Just takes a little bit. And I did think Golden had a little bit of reason to be frustrated this week. There were probably about 3 plays where he got open pretty quick, and I thought Love even looked his way and could have hit him and didn't hit him. So I thought he had the right to be a little bit frustrated this week, but just sort of some of those rookie growing pains. But again, that's why I went with Golden this week. I think he's going to have a big game this week and kind of a bounce back performance. All right, let's see here. How important is consistency for both O-line and corner? Love the competition and getting the best out of guys, but also want cohesiveness and cohesion. Yeah, I think it's important, but I think for the most part now you've got your center, left guard, left tackle, and right tackle out there, and you're only rotating one spot, and you're trying everything to find the best 5 and your best defensive backfield as well. So I think at some point you do have to kind of feel that out and figure out what's the best way to utilize these players. By the end of the year, you would like it to be a little bit more set in stone and have kind of your best 5 in the offensive line and your best 5 in the secondary that you're rolling out a little bit more consistently. Somehow the Vikings upset the Lions. I will laugh. My question is, do you think there's a world where the Vikings beat the Lions? I do not. I think that'd be one of the biggest upsets of the year. I don't think this team wants anything to do with JJ McCarthy right now, at least not the coaching staff. I think there is a very strong reason why they played Carson Wentz with no shoulder over a slightly injured JJ McCarthy that was good enough to be the emergency quarterback. I think there's a reason why they've delayed that as long as possible. We'll see. I really liked McCarthy a lot coming out of the draft. I've talked about that before. I still think there's a lot of talent there, but I thought he looked abysmal those first 2 weeks. I know he had that fourth quarter, but I thought he looked really, really bad. And I think this is going to get worse before it gets better in Minnesota. And I think they've got like 2 wins the rest of the year. And if one of them's against Detroit this week, I'd be pretty freaking stunned by it. So yeah. And just hopefully one of them's not against the Packers. I think it's going to end up being a really bad team, and they're going to have to do a kind of a rebuild on the side with an early draft pick and figure out quarterback. I think it's going to get ugly for Minnesota. I really do. I swear I saw K9 look back for the ball, though, as he raised his arms up. Yeah. Even if he did, it wasn't enough where he turned his full body. He may have, it wasn't enough. I don't think, Ben. How far is too far when trying to go all in to win a Super Bowl? Yeah. Ultimately, Nathan, the answer is, do you win the Super Bowl or not? If Green Bay traded away every one of their draft picks in the next 3 years, that's as far as you can trade away, by the way, and they won a Super Bowl this year or next, do not care. I do not care at all. Sign me the hell up. If you trade away 2 first-round picks for Micah Parsons and you don't win a Super Bowl, that already is probably too much. You've probably already done too much if they don't get a Super Bowl out of it. It's going to cost you down the line. So I think there's always a balance there. I don't think it's necessarily an equation or a thought process of how far all in do we want to go. I think the way that Brian Gutekunst is, quite frankly, is going to be looking at every deal. Is it a good deal? If trading their second round pick this year amounts to a player that can really help them and they love the player, I think they'll do it. I don't think that player's out there, by the way, but I don't think he would hesitate, even though it would leave them with only 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th round picks or whatever. I think if he found the right player for a second round pick, I don't think he would be trigger shy. I think he would do it. But if you're having to give up a second round pick for a player that you're not sure is even going to help you that much, or isn't the right player at the right time, I think he'd hedge on the side of, keeping his second round pick. So I don't think he's going to be burdened too much by already trading away 2 first round picks, but it's going to have to be the right deal for the right player at the right time. And if he finds it, he'll do it. And if not, he won't. But the ultimate answer to your question, Nathan, is it probably just depends if they win the Super Bowl or not. We'll talk about that more tomorrow, Dennis. We'll talk about that more tomorrow. Andy's super excited to join the YouTube channel. You're the best, my friend. What would voters need to see? Oh yeah, we talked about that. Oh, Emmanuel's from Carolina. See, that's the piece I was missing. I got the Jair captain part. I did not realize that Emmanuel was from Carolina. So that's the part that I was missing. What do we do with Marshawn Lloyd? The answer is nothing, chicken. Absolutely nothing. So I've talked about this a little bit. I certainly talked about it on Twitter. So the first thing people need to recognize, if you guys don't know already, I think most of you probably do, Marshawn Lloyd is on injured reserve. When you're on injured reserve, you are not taking up a roster spot. He's not been, so he's not taking up anything at the moment. If he's going to miss the rest of the season, if he's going to come back this season, then you're just wait till he comes back this season. If he's going to miss the rest of the season, the only thing that you would try to do is if you really just wanted to get rid of him and try to save anything from it would be all right, can we get an injury settlement? Well, if he's out the rest of the year, the injury settlement would pay him through the rest of this year anyway. You gain nothing from a monetary standpoint. You gain nothing from a roster standpoint. You gain literally nothing by doing anything at the moment. Literally nothing. So at very worst case scenario, a player who, by the way, has been phenomenal in both of his training camps in Green Bay, jaw-dropping plays. I don't know that anyone's tweeted about Marshawn Lloyd the way that the beat is tweeted about Marshawn Lloyd during training camp when he's been in there. He's looked awesome. You gain nothing by giving up on him. At the very worst case scenario, you bring him back next year, and you then once he's off IR, obviously at that point, and you let him go through camp. And if he can't stay healthy, you put him on IR until you have to release him or release him off of IR with an injury designation or whatever. Or if he's not up to snuff after you bring him back for his third year and he doesn't look good, then you release him at that time or try to trade him in a change of scenery trade or something like that. You're going to get almost nothing in return, but maybe you can get something. The idea of doing anything with him right now is absurd because there's literally no upside or advantage to it. So maybe Marshawn Lloyd ends up being a training camp cut casualty. A lot to say. Training camp cut casualty next training camp, and maybe they get nothing out of him and it's just a total bust, right? But you give him every opportunity to work his way in training camp. Maybe you don't count on him. Maybe you draft another running back or bring in some more running backs to compete in camp next year because you can't count on him. But you give him every opportunity to make it through camp and play next year. If he can, great. And if he can't, then you move on at that time. But no reason to do anything right now. Got in late because my work meeting went long. Damn boss. Not sure if someone asked, but would you be interested in trading for Rasul? We did talk about that. I will look at that a little bit more for tomorrow's episode. Promise you guys. Do you think Coach knows Wilson's from Charlotte? We'll see. I don't know that it's going to change this year based on how they've been doing captains anyway. If that would change his mind or if he'd be out there anyway. If it was in Carolina, maybe that would be a difference, but I don't know if he does or not. We'll see, I guess. What are the odds Wicks gets traded either at the deadline or this offseason? Deadline, I think, extremely slim, especially with him being hurt right now. It would really make it difficult anyway. He's not going to pass a physical. You can waive that, but it just makes it really complicated. In the offseason, I think there's a possibility that they move from a receiver, but you could easily lose Romeo Doubs in the offseason, so they'll have to kind of play that out as well. But nothing this year. In the offseason, it's a maybe. Do you see any cornerback worth targeting? We'll talk about that tomorrow. We'll get into trades tomorrow. Ross has an episode up as well if you want to check that out. I do appreciate that CV battled until the end of the play. I think that mentality is good for a corner to have. Totally agreed. Steelers game this past weekend being my first game I've attended was almost as much of a treat as that epic Bears comeback was in 2018, being the first game I watched as a fan. John, you're going to have to go to more games, my friend. You're a good luck charm, I guess. Definitely not Jair. Definitely not bringing back Jair Alexander. And again, we'll look at Rasul for tomorrow. Word of advice for the party. If you have a pinata, make sure the other kids stand far back when the stick is being swung from personal experience. Good to know, Daryl. Good to know. In a black spot for the Finns, Sewell last night had a few good plays, just not sure how he turns the needle for us. I think he would be part of the competition. I don't think he'd necessarily be the answer to the problem, but he gives you another piece potentially. So yeah, we'll look at it for tomorrow. I honestly believe we'll get CV and Hobbs this week primarily. We'll see. I don't think so, but no, we'll see. I was surprised last week. Was Jenkins any better in your last set of grades observations? Do you and Mike Wall still feel he looks disinterested? If either are true, would the coaches ever consider benching him? He's been better as of late. He's had one really bad game against Cleveland. He's been mostly fine. I still think he can be a lot better than what he's been so far. He had a very slight positive grade for me this week, but that may have been slightly generous. I thought he was fine, neutral level player. I need him to be a really good center. I think he can be a really good center. I don't think he's been anything near a really good center so far this year. So still think there's a lot more out there for Elton, but it hasn't been brutal these last few weeks. Just trying to get to some member chats now. Yeah, they do have Will Howard. That's a possibility there as well. Not a bad backup to have. Let's see. I know Carolina is not great, but this feels like a typical Pack letdown game. I'd love to see a complete game blowout against a substandard team. You and me both, my friend. You and me both. If you could predict the future, how long do you think we will keep Micah Parsons past his current contract? Would be great to have him for the rest of his career. I will say he retires a Packer. I think he's just been so good. I will say he retires a Packer, but actually, I take that back. I bet he's majority of his career as a Packer. I bet he has one cup of coffee with some team at the end, just because that's usually what happens. And Green Bay usually moves on from a player before they hit that, kind of decline. So I bet he has like a 1 or 2 year stint with some team at the end. But I bet his career will be defined by a Green Bay Packer, and he'll at least get one more contract with Green Bay after this initial contract. That would be my guess. I will be at the game this weekend. I'll be in the press box for this one. Excited to see what Hopper looks like if Quay can't go. He looked really good in the preseason on the 2-point conversion. Yeah, he's had a couple of plays this year that he's made. And yeah, excited to see him in a little bit more action. If that's the case, I don't want to necessarily see it because I'd like to see Quay out there, but I feel in good hands if Hopper's out there for, 10, 15 plays this game. I don't want us to go undefeated the rest of the season either. I'll take some losses and just kick it into gear on a win streak in the playoffs. All right, you and me both. That is a weird thing that we've only played one divisional game so far. Let's see. We need to relax on Matthew Golden. His time will come, guys. He's too talented not to. It's going to be like when we were all mad about Watson. Then he scored 4 touchdowns against Dallas. I did say the other day, I do think Matthew Golden will have a breakout game this year. I don't know when that is or, what that amounts to, but guys, he's my highest graded receiver on the year so far for Green Bay. He's playing good football. It's just a matter of time. It's when, not if. He's going to have that breakout game. It's going to look awesome. And he's still going to play a very, very important role for this team the rest of the season. Yeah, good time to turn back into the Bucs. They've been good. Golden catches a mid route where Watson is running a deep route and Watson blocks and pushes Golden in for his first touchdown. That'd be a sweet one. I'd love that. Bach would absolutely still be playing if he didn't shatter his knee. No question about it. Absolutely zero question about it. And he'd still be playing at a very high level. I have zero doubt in that. 34 years old, maybe a little bit on the older side. I bet he'd be graded in the top 15 tackles in the NFL right now if he didn't have injury issues. I would almost guarantee it. Almost guarantee it. Amy says F them picks. I'm all in, Amy. I'm all in. Favorite pregame breakfast in Green Bay? That's a good question. I don't go out for breakfast all that much, but Pancake Place is always really good. Nicolay is always really, really good. Any of those. I'm assuming they're open on Sunday. I haven't done the Bay Family Restaurant. I know that's a popular one as well, but I've never done that. If it's non-game day, the Creamery downtown is probably my favorite breakfast spot in Green Bay. I do not think we trade Luke. I do not. I think Green Bay will still think higher of him. And I think they probably get like a 7th round pick. And I think Green Bay just says, well, we'll ride it out and see if we can make him better. Do you see Ja was a healthy scratch? I did. Packers definitely dodged a bullet this year by releasing him. 0.01%. 0.0. People hated me for that. People absolutely hated me for that. It was really crazy. That was probably some of the biggest pushback and flack that I've got in my time covering the Packers for saying that the odds that Jair would come back was 0.01% because the writing was clearly on the wall everywhere. Yeah. And was, by the way, completely the right move at the time and even looks better in hindsight now. And I'll just add on top of it. I was hoping he was going to do well in Baltimore. I was cheering him on. He's a fun player. The league is better when he's playing really well. Just, yeah, he hasn't ever been the same since the shoulder injury. Just hasn't ever been the same. And other injuries that he's gone through. Will be at the game. Yep, in the press box. Creamery is incredible. Totally agree. Bayview and Pancake Place. Again, haven't been to Bayview, but heard great things. And Pancake Place is great. You gave 2020 Aaron Rodgers our current defense. How confident are you that he would have won the Super Bowl? I'm assuming you get to keep the 2020 offense with this defense. I think wins the Super Bowl pretty easily. I don't think there's much question about it. When Reed is back from injury, who are you keeping on the wide receiver core? Also have a wonderful day. Love Pack-A-Day. Riley, thank you so much. Yeah, I think the only person that's on the line right now of like potentially getting released or anything would be Malik Heath. Just depends on how the rest of the roster shakes out. If there's another injury at receiver, is Wicks's injury worse and you just put him on IR? But right now, I would say the most likely scenario is that Reed comes back and Heath ends up being released, or just a seventh receiver that basically doesn't get called up or played very often. That'd be my guess. And yes, Ja does have an infectious and fun personality. Agreed. It's almost like Goody knows what he's doing mostly. Usually he does. Not perfect. No GM is, but he's done a really good job building this team. All right, friends, I do need to get out of here. Thank you so much for all the super chats and all the great questions. 240 people here on a Friday for happy hour. You guys are the absolute best. Thank you for all the support. Thank you to Luiges and Sleeper for sponsoring today's show. Go support them if you can. Any of our great sponsors that sponsor us, look out for us at Pack-A-Day. So do your best to support them as well. I will see you rest of the week. We've got a bunch of bonus stuff out there with Ross Uglum right now. Tomorrow morning is going to be the trades article. Tomorrow afternoon will be Mike Wall's film breakdown of the Panthers. We'll also have on Sunday a breakdown of the game. And then I think pregame show, I'm pretty certain on pregame show, probably at 10 a.m. So I can do like till 10:45 and then get to the game on time still. And then as soon as I get back from the game, I'll do a live post-game show. And then Perry and Grant, I believe, will be with me on Monday morning to break down Packers Panthers as well. So a lot of great stuff coming up for you guys. Appreciate you. I'll see you all very soon. Happy Halloween. Enjoy the Packers game. And of course, go Pack Go.